Hi out there, this is Cynthia Howard coming from my studio in Claremont, New Hampshire. I'm the founder of Citizens for Lower Taxes, which is a group that fights taxation locally, statewide, and nationally. And I'm here to talk about taxes. I bet you didn't think I would be talking about taxes, especially in Claremont, New Hampshire, because the local media has been reporting that our tax rate has fallen. So you would think the last thing that I would be talking about is high property taxes. But guess what? Claremont still holds the record in New Hampshire, unfortunately, and it's very disturbing and it's very embarrassing. We are still at the rate of 41.47, which is per thousand. We are also the third highest nationwide in comparison to the state of New Jersey and some towns down there who are so much higher. But even though they're so much higher, we have less population and a less industrial base that they have down in New Jersey. And obviously they do have other taxes, but why would Claremont taxes be so much higher than, say, other towns in Sullivan County, other counties in New Hampshire? And it just seems that it keeps getting higher and higher, and we have more people vacating their homes, less people in the school system, more people leaving, people aren't coming in, and when they look at the tax rate, they certainly aren't going to come in, and I can't really blame them, although I've been here all my life, but I watched within the last 10 years, and it seems like something drastic has been happening, that government keeps growing, keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the people's pocketbook keeps getting smaller and smaller, and some people get sick and fed up, and they just walk away from their homes, walk away from their lives, walk away from their jobs, and go somewhere else where they can afford to live and they can afford to have more money and not be slaves to this town. So now the big story is, City of Claremont is proposing this so-called lower tax budget. Yeah, when I read that, I couldn't believe it. 16 cents per thousand less than last year. And I thought, wow. And yet they're spending this. How could this be? They're spending more. They're spending 4% more than last year. They're spending almost $1 million more than last year. Yet the tax rate has fallen. How could that be? You know why? They've received more revenue this year. So instead of setting it aside and refunding it to the taxpayers, we can't do that now. We have to spend more. We have insurances that have gone up for the town help. Instead of renegotiating a better contract, we're paying more in insurance. So that's one reason, or shall we say, one excuse of why the tax rate went up. And no one's making an attempt to cut anything to offset those so-called increased costs so that our tax rate would really fall. Instead of by a few cents, we could potentially have a tax rate fall by $2 per thousand if we really wanted to do some serious cutting and to streamline expenses to reduce any of abuse, waste, or fraud, which of course it exists in any government budget. There's always fluff, and everyone knows that. And it seems like they continue to hire more people. They continue to get better contracts. They could care less about saving money, but they'd rather spend it, and not realizing that they're doing more harm than good, because when companies come in, they take a look at Claremont, they say, oh, we'll go to a neighboring town, which is a lot less expensive. And businesses, corporations, people with money do not like to pay taxes any more than the average person. And they're not seeing it in here. They've turned a blind eye completely. But the worst part is they're using propaganda in the local media and saying, oh, we're reducing taxes by, say, $16. It makes it look good in the newspaper, I guess, or on the radio, wherever they're putting that out there. And in actuality, they aren't reducing taxes, because on the school side, which is a separate form of government, I realize that, but that budget went up. So when you put that all together, we'll actually be paying more at the end of this year than we were last year, even with the so-called $16 or 16 cent per thousand reduction because of the school budget. So the taxes will probably be somewhere closer to $42 per thousand. It's almost like the two groups say, oh, we saved them money. Oh, here, we're going to cost them more money. So it's almost like they're playing cat and mouse, and the budgets come out at a different time. So they think people forget, or they've turned a blind eye, or they're off doing something. It's summer and they're not paying attention. But I'm putting this information out there for you so that you will go to the hearing, the public hearing on the city budget, which will be held on Wednesday, June 22nd at approximately 6:30. And they want input on the budget, what you agree with, what you disagree with. And hopefully more people will come out and say, you know what, you can cut spending, you can trim that budget by at least 10%, and 16 cents isn't going to cut it, because it's a mere minuscule amount in which you people are playing with millions of dollars, so you certainly could refund more to us. And in fact, the tax increment finance district on the River Road will come to a closure, which means all that excess surplus is supposed to come back to us anyway. But they've been borrowing from that for about 10 years, close to 10 years, almost $1 million. So that $1 million belongs to us. But where it went to the other TIF district, it went to the downtown TIF district, which is running in the hole. And the reason it's running in the hole is because one of the buildings was supposed to be for condos. That never happened. The parking garage, well, the mill developer gets a free ride. He doesn't have to pay anything. The taxpayers have to maintain that building. The taxpayers have to pay the electricity. And we're getting no revenue from that parking garage, which is part of the TIF district. So when you factor that in and other things, of course it's going in the hole. And the city manager, the council, past councils have added 95 properties in that district, and it's still not coming out of the hole. Year after year, they borrow approximately $300,000. So when is that so-called borrowed money coming back if that TIF district doesn't sustain itself? And if they didn't borrow the money, our tax rate would even be higher. So what are we going to do to end that situation? I'm asking you to come out on June 22nd to the public hearing to tell them what you want done. I mean, something's got to be done to end high property taxes in this town and stop the rate from racing up and down the spectrum. And I talked to numerous people. I mean, they can actually pick up their house and move it to another town in New Hampshire. Any town in New Hampshire, and it would be lower than Claremont, New Hampshire. In other words, some people got reassessed because they had renovations done on the house, so that their taxes went, say, from $500 a month to like $800 or $1,000 a month, just because they renovated their house. I mean, this is ridiculous. And yeah, the house is worth more. They're not debating that fact. But what they are debating that is that if they move their house from another city or another town to another city or another town, it would cost them less money. They would be saving maybe $3,000, $4,000 a year in property taxes. So how can the officials in this town explain and blame other people? Like, they blame the state for cutting revenue funding off in the last 8 years. And yet that revenue funding exists in other cities and towns in New Hampshire because it's part of what the state does. So if you want to save money, you would have to literally move your house out of Claremont, move it to, say, Croydon, move it to Grantham, move it to Manchester, move it to Portsmouth, Dover, or somewhere. And yet the market has fallen. Everyone knows that. People cannot sell their houses anywhere nationwide because of economic conditions. But even with those economic conditions, they're saying, oh, because you renovated your house is worth more. Well, either let them try and let the government, the city officials, let them try to sell your house and see how they can do it. If not, move your house. You get all these people, these officials that say, well, you should move if you don't like it here. Yet most of us, a lot of us have been natives all along, and we shouldn't have to just pick up and move because they want us to move. How about having the city officials take our house and move it to another town so we can save $3,000 or $4,000 and prove to them that it's cheaper anywhere else in New Hampshire, and Claremont is overcharging the taxpayers and they're getting away with stealing. It's legalized robbery is what it is. And in fact, that TIF district that they call the downtown TIF district, it should be known as the thief district because they've squandered over $1 million in the last 8 or 9 years of our money because it's failing. So if it's failing so badly and they can't get other business in there and they didn't do what they were supposed to do, they should shut it down, and I'm sure the taxpayers of Claremont would agree on that one, because the one on the River Road has been making a surplus of money. So if one is working and one isn't, there's something wrong with the people that are running it, or if it continues, we can't afford it. So it has to be shut down. There's no other way. So I'm telling you and urging you to come out on June 22nd, even though we live in socialism. When you elect counselors, you surrender your power to those in authority. So yes, they can do whatever they want with your money, with whatever the budget is set. They can vote however they want, but if they see enough people up there, that'll shake things up, and they will do something because they're going to be outnumbered. But if they only see 10 people in the audience, of course they're not going to do anything, because they think they have all the authority and all the power that's granted to them by the city charter, and I know that for a fact because I was on the city charter commission. And city council form of government is the worst form of government because you surrender all your authority. You don't have a choice or a chance to vote. And I know we're outnumbered by the unions, and there's not much we can do about that until we change state law. Once we change state law, we can make some very drastic changes in this town, and we won't be overruled by the unions and by all these country club people that think they have us by the hand. And they don't have us by the hand.
No, they don't.
And I think I might have a guest that just stepped into the studio. My partner in crime, my partner in tax slaying is, who's here? Who just stepped into the chamber?
Well, I'll bet who you want it to be. It could be like somebody you know.
Yeah, he sounds a little bit like Alex, I think, but he might be somebody local. I don't know. Could be.
How about this other fellow sitting here? How you doing, Cindy? Having a nice day? Is everything going fine? And how are the people doing out there in the wilderness out there? And everybody out there looking for a home, 6, 7 people out there looking for homes. And they can't find them. They're bunking up like 2 families, 3 families trying to rent an apartment. And they can't come into Claremont, so they're going outside of Claremont. And some coming in Claremont. And it's a shame knowing what the town, how the town runs, and people don't do anything about it. They pack up and leave. And that reminds me back in the cowboy days, way back. And the people just get tired of the Indians and get tired of something. Can't say too much about the Indians because it runs through my veins, but it's really a bad shame what's going on with this country. And not only the country, the town, each town that you go through, they have the same clique they got through, and it's always been that way. To my eyes, that's what I see.
That's a good point, yeah. Yeah, a lot of these towns, just like down in Washington, where you have their crony friends, the lobbyists that rule the roost. That's the same thing in these little towns where you have these people, certain groups, certain cliques want it their way, and they could care less what the people say, what the people do, or what the people want, or what the people expect when they vote. They turn a blind eye and say, we're going to do it this way, because now I'm in the seat, I can do what I want. Don't you think that's the case?
Well, I think that's one of the best cases you get into. You can get into a lot of things, but I'll tell you, this country is going down the tube, and Donald Trump did say it's going to go down the tube, and he said he's going to try to straighten it out, and I know he will.
Yeah, I hope he makes more visits to Claremont, New Hampshire like he did back in January. And we've had the privilege and the opportunity to volunteer for him as county chairs. And we see this as a tremendous movement across the country. Even locally, it will have an effect. They think they're not being watched, but they are. They're being watched by people all over this country who know they're not doing the right thing for the people. And when you don't do the right thing, you get ousted. And the good people will take over.
Yeah, it's about time. It's about time. I watched television, and then I go back on the internet and I see that. And some little bit of time I have, but when they get on the news, sometime I notice they don't tell the whole truth about everything. They cut little things out, and it sounds like you're real bad when they cut it out, and it's a shame when they do things like that. But it'll come sooner or later, they'll come around with the truth of everything, of Hillary Clinton and whatever out there they're doing wrong. But we need some different people to run our country, real bad. And we got one good starter, and I hope he does a good job when he gets in there. I know he'll do a good job. Alex Jackson, remember him? Pretty nice fella. I hear about his voice all over there, and he's put a lot of stuff out there too for the people. He knows it's a rat race too.
You mean Alex Jones?
Yeah, that's him. That's him.
Yeah.
The guy got a rough voice, and he sounds like this. How you people doing? It's nice to see you people.
Exactly. Yeah. And more people need to get the word out there, and that's what I'm trying to do on this radio show, get as much information as I can about locally what's going on, statewide or nationally, depending what's pertinent and what's relevant and what's going on right now immediately. And that's, of course, our local Claremont City budget, which means spend, 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 but yet we don't see the benefit of it. And they brag that they're doing all kinds of good things and that it's going down. In reality, it's going up because the school already passed their budget, which means on that end, it's going up absolutely, $41.85 at least, close to $42 per thousand.
We need a change in the government. That's what we need. And it just seemed like in this town, whoever's on down the end of the hall, or he's up on the other end of the hall, he's gonna switch and keep switching around circles. They do, and they get the same people, and they just move to different spots on the table. It's wrong. The people don't get out and start voting, because if you don't, you're losing your town, and our town is getting in a debt so bad. We must be close to about $59-60 million in debt right now. They probably tell you no, but I bet you they were pretty close to it.
Oh yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't have the exact documents in front of me, but I know it is because of what the school renovation project was. And then you add in the town what all their leases are, what was borrowed on the bonds for the downtown Mill District. And you add all that in, and the community center. Don't want to forget that one either. Close to $11 million.
And Mr. Alan Whipple was down there when he's running. I'll tell you what, he had all the money right down to zero. Everything was down to zero, and he had to shut a lot of things down so he can keep it down to zero and then work your way up so we can use our money instead of using money from the government. Just keep squeezing money out and keep bringing our debt up. And after a while, our debt gets so high we can't afford it.
No, if they knew how to budget exactly what was coming in instead of keeping all the money and squandering it, the town would run much better. And what they do is they bond a lot of things instead of putting it as a line item in the budget. They take paving, for example. Got to bond that, another $1 million. It never ends. I never heard of bonding paving. I mean, it's part of your regular budget. It's part of regular maintenance on your roads. I think that's ridiculous, and people should stand up and say we don't want any more of that bonding.
That's for sure. People don't know what's going on until they study what's going on. In the town of Claremont, we have a lot of homeless people. And people don't know how many homeless people we've got out there. We've got a lot of them. And I guess you have to turn your pockets inside out and give them some money to help them out, because somebody's got to help them out. They're just packing, they're buying trailers, mobile home trailers. You hook on the back of the trucks and cars, whatever it is, and they head out. There's quite a few of them in Vermont, moved over in Vermont. And they I guess, trailer parks. And they're doing a good job on that. At least they got a place to live right now. And it's going to be south. I guess they head south in the winter months. That's what it's going to happen until the White House straighten out some stuff there, along with the stuff in here in Claremont. Somewheres they're going to find out the trail always leads into the badness.
Yeah, and the trail not only leads to badness, it leads to money. And somebody's making a bundle. Government now is a business. The number one employer in Claremont, as you know, is the Claremont School District. And it shouldn't be that way. It used to be industries or manufacturing or company. Now it's government. It's like everybody's got to get a job in the school system. Oh, I got to get credentials. That way I'll make a lot of money. And, of course, they think that way because There's no other really big companies in here anymore like there used to be. You have to either go to Newport, you have to go to Springfield, Vermont, you have to go to Charlestown or Keene, Hanover, Lebanon, or anywhere around here but here. And every time that a company wants to come in here, they're pushed aside with all kinds of big regulations, and then they look at the tax rate and they say, oh, we're not going in there. We're going to somewhere where they're going to work with us. And here they do anything but work with us. They work against us. So why would we go in there? What do you?
We need people that knows economics.
Yeah.
That's what they need. They need people that know what's going on, and they're not taking a step. They're taking a step backwards instead of going forward. These people in Claremont, they're afraid to go in these places.
I know. It's crazy, but I can understand that it is kind of intimidating, and they do it on purpose. They intimidate people so that they won't show up, or they'll be embarrassed. Maybe I said the wrong thing, or I didn't have the right information, and they make them look stupid, and they do it on purpose to keep people away. But don't be afraid, because to not speak is to speak, and that's exactly what they want you to do. They want everything to look like everything's going just fine. You know, we're moving forward. That word, moving forward, which I hate. I can't stand it. It's a progressive socialist word. Instead of saying moving ahead, you know, they have to say moving forward, because they're pushing an agenda that's against the people is what they're doing. And you know what else? When you look around at my hometown here, you see all these gardens, flower gardens, to make everything look nice and pretty when people come in for the so-called tourists, and yet there's nothing here to look at. Really, there isn't. There's nothing here for people to come to. And then they have all these old buildings that they're trying to make them look good on the outside, and they're trying to put little things inside the building to make people look like there's activity going on when there's nothing going on. There's nothing. It's like a mask. It's a facade.
It reminds me back down when I went to Texas one time, and you could see the tumbleweed going down the road. That's what they're going to see here. Some tumbleweed tumbling down through here. And it's a ghost town. If you look around, they got one restaurant and they got a little bit of stuff. We love our town. We love the city. You call it city, but I call it town. But you can't have something when it's being chewed up. And something's eating it all up.
And part of it is all the federal grants that they receive in this town, and they can never have enough of those. And when you take that money, there's all kinds of strings attached. And if you don't do what you're supposed to with that money, they can come back and say, we want our money, or we want even more, or we're going to shut this program down or that program, and then it's going to cost the taxpayers even double. Or when they hire like another police officer with a grant, or a fireman with a grant, or a teacher. What happens is, after the grant goes away, the local taxpayers will pick up the pieces and they'll have to fund it. And if they don't fund it, again, the federal government say you have to. You're mandated, it's part of our arrangement with you, and we'll make you pay even more. So they hold you hostage is what the federal government does. And this town and the people that run it cannot see that part. And I'm sure a lot of the people that live in this town can. But they don't want to listen.
There's a lot of people in this town, they don't even want to listen to you. Or anybody, listen to anybody. They just turn their head. And they're supposed to be officials in Claremont to run this city. I don't think so. It's wrong. Just keep going around the circle, and they come right back around. They go right back around the other way. So these people are plain sick of it, and I don't blame them. And if I could get some of these people to come forward, they're welcome to come up and sit down here and talk to.
Or maybe have a call-in. Maybe we'll have somebody call in, and that would be good too.
Yeah, that would be. Call in. We're glad to tell you what's out there and what's going on. One thing I tell you, another thing comes up, people just get out there and vote. When time voting comes, get out there and vote. And vote for the right party you want.
Right. And the problem is sometimes when we vote, we see all these same names on the ballot, but not only the same names on the ballot, they're people that have some connection to the town government or the city government, or their spouse has a connection to the city government of the town. You know who I mean. You know who those people are. They just don't want to disclose. It's not a conflict of interest. The way the city charter is written, It is not a conflict of interest, and it should be. If you have a volunteer fireman that sits on the council, he's still voting for the fireman's budget. He doesn't recuse himself. That should be outlawed. Somebody should stand up and say you can't do that. Or you have another councilwoman that's on the community rec center, and she votes for things, and she's not supposed to do that either as a councilor, but she does because she's allowed to. Nobody stands up to these people. And if you have one person that does or two people that do, that's nice. But you got to get 2 more people and another 10 more people and 20 more. When they see hundreds of people in there, they're obviously going to do something. They can step right down from their seats. That's what they need to do if they're not doing what the people want them to do. And they're playing games with the people's lives. That's horrible when they're doing that, destroying lives.
They couldn't afford to buy a new car. These people can't.
No.
And but the people that work for the city can afford it because they work for the big factory of Claremont.
Exactly. Government has become a business.
Used to be joint manufacturing one time. Now it isn't.
This is like a mini Washington D.C., right? With all the little buildings you got to rent.
It's worse than that.
You got a planning office that's down on North Street. You've got the highway department on Grandview Street. Got the police department that's a skyscraper.
The city of Claremont. They don't need all these people. You know, they got some smart people in Claremont there that's running. They work for a living. But officials know.
Well, this was a good show. We got a lot of things covered today about the tax rate and having people. Make sure you go out there and speak your mind on the 22nd of this month, which falls on a Wednesday at 6:30, and tell them what you want to do with that budget. Tell them to cut it down. So, at least, I bet you they could cut it. My husband says 50%. Other people have said 25%. But you know what? Right now they're adding. They're not subtracting, so we got to stop that adding, and we got to make them subtract. They know how to subtract. It's just more difficult to subtract than to add. It really is. And if they're benefiting from it, they're not going to subtract. So remember, Wednesday the 22nd, which will be at 6:30, and I hope to see you all out there. I can be reached at any time on the internet, cindycool09@yahoo.com. Cindy Tea Time on Twitter, cindycool09 on Facebook. Website is ccltgroup.webs.com if you need to contact us. And hopefully Phil will join me on the next show. We'll do another episode pretty soon on another Friday here. We like to have we call it our Furious Fridays. I really enjoy talking, and I really enjoy getting this off my chest. It's helpful.
Not on your chest. A lot of people out there, they want to get it off their chest too. But the whole thing is, they're just afraid. They're afraid to just get out there. When they get the point is, get out there, fight. Get out there and fight. You need to get out there and do something with your life and help out your life. We don't need these high taxes for the rich. And that's what they keep saying, for the rich. And I hope there's a lot of people out there homeless, and God bless them, that they had to sleep alongside the 4-lane highway up around the ramps and stuff. Right now it's alright, it's not too cold, but they're little kids they just walk around and feel sorry for them. You try to give them something, you ain't got no more to give. You try to give them a place to stay, and even if you pay 1 day for the motel room, something like that for them, help them out. But anyway, God bless the homeless people out there, and we'll see you around Thanksgiving, hope, and we'll see you around Christmas. We hope you people out there, the homeless, come in like you do every year. Anyway, but go ahead, Cindy.
Well, we're signing off for today. This is Cindy Howard. This is the Cynthia Howard Show. My podcast, my Furious Friday podcast, I call it. And we hope you'll join us again. And you can contact me on the internet, cindycool09@yahoo.com, anytime. Please join us again, and I hope to see you on the 22nd. Have a good weekend. Thank you for listening.